All right, guys, as we discussed previously, it is now time. We're jumping on with an interview with Jeremy. Am I going to say this right? Jernigan?
You nailed it.
Nailed
That's
it?
right. That's right,
First try.
Look
man.
at that.
Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, it's great to be here.
Even though we've already been talking for 15
Yeah.
minutes,
It's always that awkward transition of like
let's pretend like we've never spoke.
recap, reset.
Oh,
No, we appreciate you coming on the show. We have a lot of people that reach out that I think will enjoy your content as a
yeah,
whole, and so we'll definitely make sure to kind of post some of that in the episode so they can see and
yeah.
listen to some of that for sure.
So, for everybody else who doesn't know who Jeremy is, so a few weeks ago, I was just doing what I do during my quiet time and scroll TikTok. and and like this dude pops up and I was like, oh my goodness. And I'll tell you this because actually um yesterday the show that we actually dropped last week referenced this. It was the clip when you said, and I don't remember the whole context of it, but you made the statement. You're like, one of the things that we do horrible as Christians is learning how to coexist with each other,
Mm,
or at least American Christians.
yeah.
Like that's one of our problems. And it was a question about, are we under attack in America, basically, or are we under and you were like, no, but we don't know how to coexist. And like that was the TikTok that grabbed me, and I was like, dude, that's a really good thought. And it's kind of been living rent free in my head. So it caused me to like go to your page and like watch a bunch of videos and like let me check this guy out. And then I sent Josh a message and I was like, dude, I was like, check this dude out. I'm gonna send him a message, see if he wants to be on the pod. And you responded, which was in itself a miracle
That's right.
because nobody ever responds.
Yeah, just blast
I'm a
email and a message.
podcaster. I know the pain that you
Right,
feel.
Yes.
right.
So anyway, so if our understanding is correct, to give people a short, just a quick answer, and then we want to dive into your story. You are a church pastor. Is it fair to say mega church, like big church,
Oh,
like large
100%. Yeah.
mega church
Multi-site mega
pastor
church. Yeah.
that stepped out of ministry and has kind of went through this deconstruction, reconstruction journey, and now you're kind of emerging with this new lens, new perspective, not getting rid of your faith, but a new refined faith that's different from where you started.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay,
Wrap it up. That's it. You just
that's
you just
Yeah.
nailed it.
thanks for
Nice.
joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate
Uh,
your answer.
I
so
Go.
the way I say it now is I help people rebuild their faith after it
Mhm.
breaks.
Yeah,
So that's kind
yeah,
of the line. The best way I can summarize my work in this season,
yeah,
in this era,
it,
is hey, when your faith breaks, when something, it could be a life event, could be a theological, conundrum. But when something breaks and what you had doesn't work anymore, like I'm trying to help people put something together that's
and
better
yeah,
and healthier.
honestly, I think
yeah.
that's when almost everyone finds their faith.
Mm.
Is when it breaks. Because the reality is we all have faith in something. Even if you were faithless and you like found faith to begin with, a lot of times it's through this like cathartic moment. But then for people that were raised in the faith, they had a lot of times, and this is what I'm sure you're seeing, is there's this superficial structure that has worked for them until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then there's this like existential spiritual crisis that they go through. And then people like you are there like, hey, yeah, exactly. Great. Come join me.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of people I talk to think that they have to abandon the whole thing. Like, I can't be a Christian anymore. I can't follow Jesus. Like, I can't believe any of this because X, Y, and Z fell apart, or I don't believe, certain things I used to believe. And
Mhm.
you need someone, a guide, if you will, to go, hey, it's okay. Like, you don't need to give it all up. Like, let's navigate this and establish it as something new that's different than what you used to have. But yeah, you're totally right. Like we're going to create something more holistic, something deeper
Yeah.
that builds on what you used to have. So we're not throwing it away. We're not, I am the sum of all the previous versions of me, and I'm at this version now that has built
Mhm.
on, those previous ones.
And it reminds me of when we did an interview with Aaron Simmons too, who's a Furman professor. He actually might be a good listen for you because as I was looking at some of your interviews, a lot of the quote unquote God pods, I guess, interview a lot of the same people like Brian Zan and things like that.
Right.
And so Aaron's one of those that we brought on because he's local, but he always says the Kierkegaard aspect of like you can't have faith without risk,
Mm.
and that is a huge push against probably everybody in our area that has somewhat of a conservative view of Christianity, where you don't take risks, you have certainty, and that takes kind of the faith out of it. And that seems to be kind of the same vein as what we're talking about now, of like you can't have certain faith. That's just a it's just an oxymoron. It doesn't go together. And people don't realize that risk is a part of that, and risk being wrong, or risk being like not completely understanding
Mhm.
of something.
Well, risk doesn't feel good.
Yeah,
Certainty feels real good. Certainty,
yeah,
Yeah, it
you lay your
does.
head down at night and you're like,
yeah,
I got the answers to the
yeah,
questions that matter. I know
yeah,
how to
Yeah.
exist in the world, right?
yeah,
Risk is that, hey, do I scratch that itch? Do I open that door? Do I ask that question?
Mhm.
And I think it's a lot of personality based. Like I'm just kind of a sucker for punishment in this regard, where I'm just too curious. I'm too curious for my own good, where it's like I ask the questions I shouldn't ask.
Yeah.
And if I could just shut up and be content the way a lot of people seem to be content, I'd probably be a lot happier in life.
That's
Uh, but
that's
I
true.
just I just can't, and I think that has allowed me to be an early adopter to some of these conversations,
Yeah.
where for other people it takes maybe a little bit more till you
yeah.
finally go, I gotta risk something.
So right now you have two podcasts.
Mhm.
One is just a short, I believe, like a devotional called Rebuilding Faith. Is that right? I remember.
So it's basically that's the reconstruction podcast. So I have a
Okay.
deconstruction podcast and a reconstruction podcast, because I've realized you need both in this conversation. So yeah, rebuilding faith, 10-minute Bible messages for people with questions and doubts.
hmm And then your other one is the Cabernet and Pray,
Hmm. We have
where
wine and talk about Jesus,
one.
I'm
and
telling
we
you what,
deconstruct all of it.
I'm telling you, I showed my wife that the other night because we're wine club members here, and I was going through like some of the retreats and things like that, and then the rental property in Willamette, and it's just like, that would be awesome. Like that's the dream, that's the dream, is to talk about wine and Jesus at the same time without being judged would be fantastic. And it's a great. We watched a couple of videos on there. It's a great gift, and it's like we're sitting there looking at the wine as well. It's like, man, I don't even know if we can get that here. Like, I don't even know if that's even possible, because you're like smack dab in the middle of the best. And one of our actually favorite vineyards is like 25 minutes from Gilbert, I think, or no, from not Gilbert, Newburgh, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
Ricochet. Ricochet is one of our favorites around there, and so he came and did a thing here in Spartanburg actually, and was like telling us about the area and all this and that, and I'm like, yeah, we're definitely gonna have to visit for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there are more than 600 wineries in
Dang.
a short drive of that area. And so that, I mean, and again, that has become a huge part of my story if we end up circling back to
Mhm.
that. But that whole area is like magical. And that's where I do my soul work,
Yeah,
is me, God, in the vineyards.
So
yeah,
then let's go there. Like, as counselors, Josh and I, we want to hear people's stories. Like stories are fascinating. I don't think I will ever get tired of hearing about a person's journey. And so let's hear yours. Like take us back. Where are you from? Where do you live now? How did you get here? Tell us about your life.
Well, when a husband and a wife love each other very much,
The very
so
beginning.
the very beginning, I am a second generation pastor preacher. So grew up, my dad was in the ministry. I was born in Yuma, Arizona,
Okay.
which may not be familiar to your audience, but the only way people know of Yuma is if you're driving from Arizona to California, you get gas in Yuma. That's what people know of Yuma. So it's a town you drive through. That's my birthplace. And so my dad was in ministry there, went to California for a little bit, came back, and essentially have grown up in Arizona, Phoenix area, but a smaller city of that. And that's been home. That's where I live now. And it's not necessarily by choice. It's because of where the journey has taken us. We lived in Oregon for 3 years, and that was where I like found my place. Like that's where, if
hmm
you could just like, hey, put a dot on a map, you can live anywhere you want, and it all the other details work out. Like that's where I'm putting my dot. But the other details have not worked out. So
So
I
do you
grew
hope
up.
to end back up there at some point?
I'm having to settle for, we have a couple rental homes there right now
Okay.
is kind of our common denominator.
Yeah.
And so we'll take some time, I'll go up there regularly throughout the year. We try to spend a couple weeks in the summer, bring the kids up there, and the summers in Oregon are just amazing, much better than the heat in Arizona. So that's right now, that's kind of where we are. We do toy with the idea of like moving back occasionally, or
Gotcha.
I'm trying to talk. I got my oldest is 16. I'm like, hey, you could go to college in Oregon. Then I'd have an excuse to be up there more and come see
Yeah.
it. So maybe that'll work. But
Yeah.
yeah, grew up in ministry,
Mhm.
watching it, had a great view of it.
What
My dad,
denomination was your father a pastor in?
so non-denominational Christian church.
Okay.
So it's a joke. Like it's technically not a denomination, but there's a yearly conference. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's we we
It's its
we
own
it's
non-denomination
it's a
denomination.
non-denomination denomination.
Yeah.
Dang.
But churches of Christ and Christian churches are kind of connected. And so I was in the Christian church branch of all that. That
Okay.
was what I came from. That was what I knew. That was where I did ministry. Worked for my dad for 12 years. That is it was a huge church here, 5 campuses. When I left, there was about 10,000 people on or in attendance, and went to go be a lead pastor in Oregon of a multi-site megachurch up there. And that was an incredible journey. Thought I was going to retire there and right into the sunset. And that did not play out
Yeah.
the way I envisioned it.
Okay.
With being a preacher's kid, a PK, like I feel like they go in two directions. Like
Sure.
either you grow up and you replicate what you see, which is kind of what you did, or you like walk away and it's like all I saw was the ugly of church and like I'll just do my own thing. So like what was it like for you growing up as a preacher's kid in a very it sounds like a very successful situation. Like it was big, there's a lot of movement happening. So what was that experience like for you?
So the thing that my parents did that I think was different and was helpful for me was they always included us in the ministry. And so I think what a lot of, parents do is like, hey, dad's at church and then he's not home and then you're always kind of feel like you're competing. I always felt like I got brought to the church all the time. So like I grew up literally in the church. I was the kid playing toys in the pews. I mean, like I just was always there, which, probably had its own dysfunction in that regard as well. But that was, it was never like, hey, my dad had to pick between that or the church. It was like I felt like I was always a part of it as a kid. And so I grew up in that environment, loved it, felt very comfortable. And so, people talk about like, oh man, getting up to preach a sermon, like that would terrify me. I'm like, I was doing that in junior high. It's like it was just this is what I grew up in. It
You
was
just
so natural to me.
assimilated into it.
Just
Yeah,
the
I was
norm.
like, no, I've always been around that. I've always been around church people. I've always been in that setting. So that environment was always very familiar. And I did see the ugly part of it. There was a season when I was a senior in high school that I had was originally going to go into ministry. I was like, you know what, this is not for me. I'm going to go into business, make a bunch of money. And a youth pastor sat me down and was like, hey, you're running from your calling. And I was like, nah, it's my dad's thing. He's like, I know. He's like, but it's also your thing. And I think God wants you to go into this. And so that was the moment I felt like God had called me to the local church, which I know people get kind of weird about the calling and
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
or not it's real. I did sense at that season, up until I resigned as a lead pastor, where I felt God release me from the calling I had received as a high school senior. So that lasted all those years, and very much still love the church a lot. I also feel like I'm able to critique the church as an insider, not as
Mhm.
someone on the outside throwing rocks. And so because it's my story, because these are my people, I feel like I'm able to say, hey, we've got to do better. And today I see a lot of issues, a lot of dysfunction in the church that isn't talked about. And so a lot of what I do on TikTok even is kind of offer the behind the scenes. And so like one of the questions we just did was, do pastors get lobbied
Yeah,
the
I
way
saw
that
that.
politicians do?
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how churches are actually ran. And, I knew as a lead pastor, I knew all the givers in our church. I knew who was the top givers, and so I would write them thank you cards and I would, pour into them. And again, I can argue that side of it as well. I can also tell you that some of those families absolutely tried to lobby me, tried to wield the I give a lot and you need to listen. So now I feel like I'm able to help people navigate, because a lot of people don't know. Most people just attend, like they don't know how it's ran or what goes on behind the scenes. And so it takes someone who's been in there. And again, I was in there for 20 years of full-time ministry, and now doing it in a more creative way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're supposed to trust what it should be. And I think a lot of people like walk into to church and just trust what it should be. You think church, you think Jesus, you think great, this is great, this is perfect, this is awesome. And I always compare like church and counseling to the same thing, where you have an overall goal to help, but each one can impact you in a negative or positive way. And you don't realize that until you get in there and really see what's going on. And so like you fully just trust the journey of, or the mission of it. And you're like, oh yeah, no, there's no way that, which is so funny because people still to this day, news will come out about a pastor or about a Christian leader. And everybody's like, I mean, how in the world did that happen? And it's like, what do you mean? Like it happens all the time. Like it's just like people just almost turn a blind eye that that is possible, or that things like that can happen behind closed doors. And I think it's good that you kind of pull the curtain back on that, just because accountability is necessary in situations like that, because it helps leadership, it helps people in the church trust and go from there.
Well, and so much of what we do is cultural, but we don't understand that it's cultural. So we think, no, this is what the scriptures say has to be done this way. And it's like, no, the scriptures actually don't give you much of a formula on what the church is supposed to look like practically. And so it ends up being a very cultural expression, which I think every culture you have to do that. But you should also have an awareness of, oh, we just do it this way because like that's the cultural way we do it, which doesn't make it wrong or right. It also doesn't make it scriptural, And so some people are like, it has to be done, or the role of the pastor is, it's like, and even, I don't know if you guys get into this much, but like, for a lot of years, a lot of the conversations I was in was like whether or not women could be in ministry. Can women be pastors? Can they lead? Can they teach? Can they be an elder? All these conversations. And what was always so interesting to me is people would go back to, well, the scriptures say this about a pastor. It's like, the scriptures didn't call men pastors. Like this role that you have so clearly defined isn't actually there. You're reading into that. And so you can't necessarily use the verses you're using to say women are disqualified from it, because that's a cultural expression. Now, again, there's other arguments, to be made of that. But yeah. I think so much of it, we don't question it enough. And so I think this is why I love the podcasting format, right? Like you're not necessarily going to do this conversation on a weekend service, but let's talk about our theology, our faith, our practices, our idea of what is the church. Like all of this matters immensely.
So you're doing really well. You felt God's hand on you and was like, hey, this is for 20 years. I'm rocking and rolling. But something broke. Right. But something broke, or so I guess one question I have, and I don't know when you want to answer this, is do you still believe God was calling you to do what you were doing at that time, even though your beliefs have now shifted about what you believed at that time?
Ooh, Marty, that's such a good question. That question I had to spend like over a year on, because that was
we've got some time. Thing. We've got 30 minutes. So
how long is this episode going to be?
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting to the a hard issue in my story, which was, God, you called me into this and I did it, and I did it for 20 years. And it was, felt very much up until everything was building, my responsibilities.
It felt
were
authentic.
Growing.
You didn't feel like a fake person.
Oh, not at
or
all.
A poser or anything.
I loved it. Like, woke up in the morning stoked to go to work every day. Like, not to mean like there weren't hard days and discouraging times, but like believed to my core, this work matters. And it was never just like a job to me. Like I poured myself into that, thinking that, I mean, so much hangs in the balance of the work that I'm doing. And, just not like an overinflated view of myself, but just a gratitude. Like I get to do something that matters. And that did absolutely break. And I had to revisit the high school version of me and the conversation I had then with God, which was just very clear. I want you to do this. And the way I've landed is, yeah, I do think God called me to do that. I think God asked me to do that. And we can get into like free will and God's foreknowledge if you want, because I love these subjects. But I don't think it's the only route I could have taken. I think it's the route God invited me to take, and I said yes to that. So that was the road we walked down. But then I clearly got a sense in 2020 when I was being faithful to what I sensed Jesus asking me to do, that Jesus is going, do this that I've asked you to do, and let me handle the results of it. And the results of it were a pocket of very influential people in our church. And I say a pocket because it wasn't the majority, but it was a minority that had significant influence, decided this isn't the kind of church we want to be. We don't want the risk, to go back to what Josh was saying earlier. And literally I was told, just preach Jesus. Stop talking about, this was after George Floyd was murdered. Oregon and Portland in particular was one of the hubs of the reaction to that. Yeah. So literally everyone in our city is talking about it. And I'm like, hey, we should probably talk about this too. Like, we should probably invite these conversations in. And it was like, no, you're stirring up division. This isn't what we want it to be about. And so I was given an ultimatum from my board that for me to maintain my role,
you pissed off the lobbyists, is what you did. Is what it sounds like.
I did. I pissed off the lobbyists, and I'll circle back to that because that's a fascinating insight as to what I learned in that season. But I was basically told, hey, for you to maintain this position for a month, we're going to give you 3 stipulations. You're not going to preach for a month. You're not going to use your blog for a month, my personal blog, and you're not going to use social media for a month. Their belief was I was stirring up dissension in our church. Now, I would say the absurdity of that was the country was literally on fire. Everyone is talking about it. And I'm just looking out the window saying,
hey, there's a fire out there, guys.
Are we going to acknowledge like everything's burning around us? Right. And it's like, don't acknowledge that. And so their solution was literally, and I think they believed this, like, if we can just shut this guy up for a month, this will all blow over. We'll be fine. We'll get back to church as we knew it. And, if you guys have been in the church world long enough, when suddenly a lead pastor goes dark and the board won't let them preach, what do you assume?
They're sleeping with somebody.
100%. 100%.
Not
so
their
my
wife.
My wife starts getting phone calls asking her, who did Jeremy sleep with? What did he do to you?
Yeah.
And that broke something in her where she's like, she came to me and she said, your board is destroying your credibility and your reputation.
Well, the irony is it's not who did you get in bed with, who did you not get in bed with? And it was the board.
Yeah.
And they were not okay with that.
And so like when I watched my wife have to field those questions, I was like, oh, like I didn't anticipate that part of it. It was like, because I didn't sleep with anybody. I didn't embezzle money. I didn't berate a staff member. Like there was none of that. Now, again, they tried to paint me as this villain, and there's a whole bunch of that story, but there was nothing there. It was, I was saying things about, the church that they didn't want to be that kind of church. So I would say something broke in me where I did lose my altruistic idea that, hey, if given the chance, this can all work out great. Something broke in me of, hey, you can have the right people in the right setting at the right time, and it doesn't work, and people don't want to go. And so that was
the moment when
that was the moment for me. And just to be real vulnerable, real candid, there was a moment in all of this where the board had said, hey, whatever you decide to do, because they had, one of my options was to resign if I didn't want to do what they wanted. They said, hey, whatever you decide to do, like either way, we just want you to know we're going to take care of your family. Because I moved there. I knew no one else outside the church when we moved there, moved my family there.
And how long had you been at this church?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Thinking I'm going to retire. I mean, this was not a stepping stone to anything for me. This was
it.
I put down my roots. And so they say that to me in that conversation, which I said, I'm really grateful you guys are saying that, because obviously I'm concerned about my family and what we do. And so I end up resigning, which was one of the options that they had given me. And, I had other pastors and ministers like, hey, you need to help them figure out what a severance package would be appropriate, because boards don't often know that. So like recommend something to them, give them your reason why, then let them, negotiate or take it up from there. So I said, okay. So I did that. Here's what I think based on, how long I've been here, all this, and submitted that to them. And they wrote me back and they said, hey, after review, we've decided not to give you a severance. So not only did they force me to resign, essentially, unless I did what they wanted, then it's like, we're going to kick you to the curb. And here's the kicker. So the elder that said that to me was in my exit interview with HR, happened to be there. And I was so hurt, as you can imagine, just so holistically hurt. Like, you guys are literally kicking my family to the curb and all this. And so I said to him, hey, can you help me understand? Like, you told me you would take care of my family no matter what I chose. And then you guys have said you're not going to give me a severance. Can you help me understand, what did you mean when you said we'll take care of your family? And he looked me straight in the eye and said, oh, I meant we'd pray for you.
Nice.
And that is the moment I can pinpoint now, something snapped in me. Where I went, this whole thing is fake. This whole thing is not real. Like, if this is what the church is, if this is what Christian love, I mean, like, now again, that's a bad example in the sense of, like, he wasn't, I think, honoring Jesus in that moment. But a lot of people have experienced that. And that's when I say, when your faith breaks, like mine broke in that moment.
Yeah. How did that, like, when you left, I guess maybe a couple weeks, 3 weeks after that, like, as you're processing that, like, does that send you into a full tailspin of not even like church, but faith too? Or was faith like still there, or was it questioning everything from the root up? Like, was it God? Was it church? Was it like was it the whole gamut of things?
How deep did the fracture go?
I never had issue with Jesus. Like, never. And I feel like I had worked my theology out in ahead of time. So my theology was there for me in the sense where I didn't align with a lot of my denomination, air quotes. I had come to some other understandings of who Jesus was that served me really well in that season, where I wasn't rattled at all. And I got asked all the time, are you and Jesus okay? It's like, Jesus and I are fine. His bride, however, I got some words for. Like,
he's a dirty whore.
I had some extreme emotion toward the church that took me years to work through. And I went to counseling, and I mean, like that was not a, hey, I'll just, like, no, we're gonna have to work through it. And so today, the way I would describe it is, I can show you scars that I have from the church. You can poke them and they don't bleed anymore, but they'll always be there. Like, so it's not a fresh wound that I go, oh, hey, don't ask me about that. Don't, no, I'll talk about it. I'll show you them. They're there for the rest of my life, but thankfully they're not bleeding, but they bled for a while. Like, it was a couple of years. Those suckers were still bleeding.
So up until that moment in 2020, I mean, you were planning to retire at this church. So to me, it seems like your relationship with the board and the congregation was good until it wasn't. Is that so? Or had there been some small issues, and this was the cherry on the cake for the church?
Oh, so this is, now we're getting into church politics. This is a fascinating conversation. I was naive in how boards run. And I see that now. I did not fully appreciate that then. And one of the things in our context was that elders didn't have term limits, which when I came to the church was kind of a red flag to me. Like, that sounds like, oh. And I remember everybody, the outgoing pastor and some other elders, like, no, this is so beautiful because, you don't have to constantly turn out and train new people. Like, these people are bought in. And so it was sold to me like, this is something really beautiful. Well, I hadn't come from that model. Like, the model I came from, there were no elders for life. These were terms, and you had limits on it. And so in hindsight, what I discovered is there were some elders who are still elders at this church that had all kinds of influence and all kinds of things that I had no idea about. And as I started to uncover some of that, it definitely, I started getting on the wrong side of these people.
Mm,
And I only understood this in hindsight, didn't understand it at the time of like what was going on. But I certainly think they started to realize, hey, we're not going to have the influence over this guy that we thought, and he's not going to do the things we wanted. Now, this church was at this time like 30, 31 years old. So you still had founding members of the church that were
mhm,
part of it. So it wasn't, I was only the second pastor. And so you still had these original members with this vision of, no, this is what our church is going to be, weren't interested in it becoming something else. Now, the sad part was the majority of the church, I honestly think, were stoked where we were going, how we were changing, we were growing. We were like, I didn't want to be a reactionary hub. Everyone's like, well, Portland's so liberal and crazy. Like, I wanted to reach the people around us, like not in response to the culture, but like, let's engage with the culture.
mhm.
And what I realized, like, no, they wanted this to be a conservative, safe space to like bash everything going on around us. And that's just not how I envisioned the
Yeah,
church. Like, no, we're going to be at
Yeah.
one with our community. Like, we're going to be an expression of how does this community follow Jesus? And that's, it literally, I was just told numerous times, just preach Jesus, which now I use that as a joke all the time on, whenever I'm preaching Jesus and
yeah,
my podcast, like, which part of Jesus do you want me to preach? Like when he's
Yeah.
pissing people off, when he's
yeah,
offending people, when he's calling the religious people names, like which
yeah,
part, but that's never the Jesus. It's like what
No.
they mean is make us feel good and certain and remove all the risk. Like we
Yeah.
don't want any of that.
Yeah.
And man, life is too short. I have zero interest in putting in that work.
Well, it's even when you start breaking that down, like you start to understand. And my dad used to always say this. He was in the newspaper business, and he never went to church for a while, and he started going to church. But he'd always say that, yeah, it's the religion business. But when you talk about it in that way, and even I guess Marty with being an elder, you can see aspects of it's a business model. Like it's like you even talk about it, it's a board. Like if nobody knew we were talking about church right now, they would just think you're a CEO of a company that didn't go a certain way and your board voted you out. Like it's
Managing
kind of
millions of dollars.
managing
correct.
millions of dollars. Yeah,
Right.
like
You know what I mean?
yeah, like that, and that's kind of how
And the
that's
product
where
is just make me feel like I'm getting into heaven.
right. Yeah, like, and
So
that's the structure of it.
well, and Marty, when you were talking earlier about, the whole I didn't give in to the lobbyists,
Yeah,
here's what I realized that functionally, well, I'll put it like this. What we say the role of a board is, hey, they are the direction, the overall direction of a church, and they're the safeguard, if the pastor goes rogue. Like that's how probably the two things we say most common across the board, right? Like the board is to provide the overall direction of the church and to safeguard if anything, great. Sounds great. Here's what I learned in reality. There's two things that the board kicks in faster than anything else on one of two things. If attendance goes down or giving goes down,
Hmm.
nothing will activate a board faster than one of those two criteria. Your
because those go
giving goes
hand in
down,
hand.
your
Essentially,
attendance goes down.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
then the board is all up in your business. And here's the sad reality. There should be lots of things that a church would be called to do to follow Jesus that would lead to less giving or less attendance. But
Yeah.
if the board has the idea, it is our job to maintain attendance, to maintain giving, then you'll never entertain that conversation. And, we're talking about the guy who was killed by the Romans, betrayed by his own people, like he didn't come out of all of that with a book deal and a mega church. Like
Yeah.
Jesus didn't produce those results, but we want today follow that guy, do what he did, say what he said, and have more people and more giving and always
Yeah.
up and to the right.
Well,
And I
Yeah.
just found like it doesn't work like that.
one of the things I mentioned on our last podcast is we were unpacking that idea of coexistence and how there's this, I hate to say it, I'll just use the Trinity term. There's this kind of this revival of Christian nationalism, not revival, but I think they're trying to like, with the whole Charlie Kirk thing and like you're seeing a lot of the God country Christian situation. And I'm not here chastising. There's a lot of good people there, but um, if you go back to Passion Week, I said this on the last show. If you go back to Passion Week, the people laid down palm branches because they were looking for an earthly king to build a kingdom,
Mm.
right? And yeah, the goal was lead them out of oppression, build something successful. And it was like, Jesus was like, no, like that's not what I'm here for. We still haven't figured that out. Like we still haven't, like literally, if you look at all of
Totally.
the things that are like going back to whether it's the Crusades, Catholicism, like look at all of them. It's like they still are like, yeah. Like the earthly kingdom. And then like you look at the real like the reform side, and they're all like, yeah, we're all going to hell in a handbasket. We're all horrible, whatever. We're all depraved. So, like, on one hand, we'll trash humanity, but on the other hand, we can't get away from still trying to build a kingdom, whether it be a church or a country, as a Christian country, or whatever, or the denomination. It's like when it comes down to it, it's like we just can't shake greed.
Well, and the scary part is in the context that I come from, and I certainly bought into this. So this is not me
Mhm.
pointing a finger like, I was above it. I bought into this. We married that greed to the Great Commission.
Yes.
So it was, we're going to go and make disciples of all nations. We're going to baptize them in
Mhm.
the name of Jesus. We're going and it was so lathered with that spirituality that then it covered over, I want this to be huge and I want this to be influential and I want to feel important. Right. And so I look back now and I go, how much of what I was doing was feeding my own ego? And
Mhm.
probably a lot was. And I didn't say that at the time. I would have said, no, this is the Great Commission, but there were, definite tensions that I had that, now I can look back and go, oh, that was kind of bleeding through. Like one of the things I used to say, and I got flack for this, is someone would come to me and, they'd be like, hey, I think you believe X, Y, and Z about this. And I can't get on board with that. And I'd be like, yeah, like, well, take the reform thing. I'm very much not reformed. So let's say someone in my church comes to me and they're like, hey, we really love reform theology. And that's the way we understand God. And we just don't get that from you. I'd be like, you're totally right. Like, that's not the way I understand God. But there's this reform church 15 minutes down the road that I think you would love. And I'm friends with that pastor.
Mhm.
And I'd be happy to introduce you. Like, I really think you would like that. And so I would send people to other churches all the time. Or, hey, we're looking for this kind of a church. Like, oh, you're actually looking for a really conservative church. That's not who we are, but there is a really healthy one, 20 minutes this way. And I
Yeah.
would send people out, and it got around to my board that I was doing this, and they confronted me on it. And they said, why are you sending people to other churches? And I said, if I'm in a conversation with someone and I understand what they're looking for, and I know they're not going to find that here, why would I not encourage them to go find the environment
Right.
that is the expression of what they're like? I don't want them to be miserable here. Like, we're not competing with these other churches.
Yeah.
And to me, that was so obvious. And then I realized as I got chastised for it, like, oh, maybe that's not a normal way for people to think about this.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah. But I mean, as you say it out loud, I'm sure everybody that listens to this, even in church, will be like, yeah, that makes sense. But then you come down to it, and most everybody would say the same thing that the board said, like, why are you sending everybody everywhere else? It's like, why won't you bring them? What's wrong with us? And it's like,
Mhm.
it's not a one size fits all. And I think that goes back to your, I guess what we talked about yesterday, which would have been last week, the coexistence part. Like that preaches to coexistence in a healthy way. It's not like I hoard this theology and this is my theology and this is the right theology, and then everybody outside of that is either wrong or less than.
Mm.
And it's kind of like this coexistence of like, here's my convictions, here's what I believe is right, here's what and I guess we could get into like breaking points of that, but majority of the time it's like, no, even you said like, this is a healthy church, this is a great guy, I know him, go there, like, great, awesome.
Well, even the
But
way I would preach theology was very much from a coexistent point of view. So, like, I
mm,
remember one time I preached about hell, and I said, all right, what we're going to do in this series, I did a series on it. We're going to lay out the 3 dominant Christian understandings of hell that the church has had throughout the years. And I'm going to show you verses on each one. And, we're going to talk about why people believe that, who believes that. And then I'm going to tell you where I land with it. And you're free to land where you land, but like, you're going to have an understanding. So like, that's how I would approach subjects. And people would be like, Pastor, don't tell us that we can disagree with you. Like, just tell us what the right one is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know the right one. I'm telling you the one that makes the most sense to me. But I also know enough about Christian history to know Christians have also viewed it this way and this way.
Yeah.
And yet that is another example of coexisting. Can we coexist with people who are annihilationists and people who believe in eternal conscious torment and, universalists? Like, can we all be in a church together and go, yeah, they land differently on that one than I do? Or do we say everybody's got to be exactly where I am?
Yeah.
So you leave this church, you have this breaking point, you resign, they pray for you out of the kindness of their hearts.
Yeah.
And
So they say.
how many people were on the board? Like how big was this board?
I think it was like 7.
7?
At that time.
So, because what it almost sounds like to me, maybe I'm wrong, but you're talking about like the George Floyd and some of the stuff that's going on in Oregon at that time is, when everyone's stressed, everybody handles it differently. It seems like you were like, I want to handle it by inviting it in, not to pick a side, but like, can we acknowledge that this is happening? Their response to how do we recreate stability in the midst of chaos was like, let's be an ostrich, let's just put our head down.
Yeah.
Right. Like everybody's just responding to stress, we just respond different ways. And then coupled with some of the other stuff, it led to, you resigning. Has anyone on the board came back to you and apologized, or did anyone circle back around to you at any point after that? Because I feel like you're saying some of these people had bigger voices than others, and I feel like in a situation like that, undoubtedly, you probably had a good relationship with some of these guys. Like my guess is, after the hurt wears off, there's probably part of you that's like, some of these guys are good guys. We just really disagreed on this. And did any of them circle back around and be like, listen, I just didn't know what to do, and like I didn't want my head on the chopping block, so I just let it happen, or any resolution with that
No.
for any of them?
Nope.
Yeah.
So I say all that.
Say all that. Well, I mean, you're allowing it in. Go back to your point. Allowing that in threatens the 2 things that you mentioned in their perspective. It threatens attendance. It threatens giving, because both of those go hand in hand. Like, if you engage in those topics, could you essentially send people out to another church? Could you, even though you're doing that anyway? But like, is there a way to create a stability and do all this and do all like, and I think that's where I struggle with in the sense of church, because in the same way, church hurt happens, and then I was 2-year hiatus, I guess, out of church, and you say the scar thing, it makes a lot of sense, because if I would have stepped into a church, it wouldn't matter if it was healthy or not. If I wasn't healed, it felt wrong, just because I was there, and then the hurt was there, and then it was like, even the format of it, and it's like you start to question everything. You start to say like, what's going on behind the scenes? Like, what's the hearts? Like, what's this? And then like I just find myself being overly critical. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure they spent thousands on that TV. Like, it started getting a little ridiculous. But it's
you can leave because an environment you figure out is toxic, but if you don't heal and you go somewhere, you quickly become the toxic one yourself.
Right. Yeah. And that was kind of the transition point for, I guess, for me personally. But for you, you talk about leaving, you talk about going through the healing process. Like, what was the healing process like for you? Like, was it like taking a full step back completely from church altogether to kind of just sort this out, to heal, to process? Did it take a while just to step back into church? Did you talk to even church leaders? Did you stay away from church leaders? Like, what was that like for you?
That's a great question, Josh. It took a long time. And so I'm 5 years removed from this now, as I sit here today. And I would tell you right now, I feel like for the first time since then, my life is starting to make sense again. As like, okay, this is what I'm doing with it. So I felt lost, like, just because you got to realize, I grew up in this. So relationally, it's all I know. I have, 2 degrees in Bible and ministry. So professionally, that's all I know. My resume is a killer resume. If you want to hire a evangelical megachurch multi-site lead pastor, like I'll check all the boxes for it. My theology is going to be a problem for you, but my I can lead that. So like all of that was like, well, what do I do with that now? And it's like I don't know what I do with that. And that was very uh just felt like wandering for a while. And so we flew out. There is an organization that specializes in counseling pastors, and they were in Florida at the time. So we flew out to Florida probably 6 months after I resigned. My wife and I did like an intensive, like went out for a week and met with this guy that was incredible, and I just like vented. I'm just like dumped so much frustration, so much hurt, so much all of this into a very safe space, right? Someone who's this is his experience, he's seen it all, he's trained, and that began what I would say a very formal healing. Like, and I remember thinking I can, and he probably said this to me, but you can either let all of this make you bitter and no one wants to be around that person, or you can make you better. And those are really, as cliche as it sounds, those are the two options. Like, you're going to be better from this or be bitter. And I'm stubborn enough and competitive enough that I'm like, this is going to make me better. Like, I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to, so ironically, I was committed to the work. And now there was a lot of things in that. I had a mentor of mine in all of this. Like when the elders gave me that ultimatum, my idea was I was going to post that on my blog, the 2 pages of what they wrote, because I was convinced if our church read that, they would have all stood up to the board and been like, this is not what we want him to do. And I felt the way the phrase I would use, I felt like they overplayed their hand. Like, you guys shouldn't have done this. And literally when they handed it to me, I was like, oh, I've got you now, because you are so overstepping your role as a board. And I don't think our church will do this. And so I was talking to one of my mentors in that moment, and he's like, I believe strongly that you should not defend yourself. And I was like, what? He's like, I believe strongly that you should not defend yourself. You should not post that on your blog. And I remember saying to him, I vividly remember where I was. I was like, if I don't do this, they win. And he said, he reiterated, I believe strongly.
Yeah.
You should not do this. So I didn't post it. And it was so funky. Like, they didn't even announce. This is how dysfunctional this was. They didn't announce that I had resigned the weekend after in the services. So there's no lead pastor, and they don't even mention that in the services. Like, I don't know. Seems like an important detail to point out, like, hey, our lead pastor resigned this week. They never told anybody. Go into the following week, they're still not telling anybody. And they wouldn't let me email the staff. They wouldn't let me email the church. So they cut me off. Like, I can't communicate anything. And I'm like, how do I even, no one even knows that I don't work here anymore. Like, people are still calling me. And I'm like, you have to tell people that I resigned. And they didn't for a while. And so finally I had to force their hand. I wrote on my blog, I didn't post their letter. I posted a resignation like, hey, just want to let you know I resigned, because so many people didn't even know. They tried to bury it.
Did you put the actual date of the resignation?
I don't think I did. No.
Okay.
Because again, my goal in this was not to try to win. And that was not my idea. That was
I was going to say, it sounds like it started as your goal.
Healthy mentor. But I felt like I at least need you to know I don't work there anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so that was the resignation.
Yeah, that's not you defending yourself. That's just you quit working.
But like, you should know I don't work there anymore. And then, I just said, hey, that the board asked me to do something I didn't feel like I could do, and I resigned. Like, so it's a summary. It is not a, hey, let me give you the nitty gritty at all. And
so did you have a ton of church members reach out to you at that point?
So here's what got really bizarre is you had me versus the board. And it was really obvious I was leaving. the board was staying. So if you wanted to stay in that community, you really didn't have much choice other than to support the board.
Yeah.
So the people that did reach out, it was almost all the same message of, hey, I'm really sorry. I hope this doesn't hurt you more, but like this is our community. And so
Yeah.
we're gonna support. And I didn't fault them for that. Like I understand, like if you want,
Yeah.
because unless you're willing to go, and again, a number of people did, they just bounced. They're like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
not at all what we signed up for, and we're out. But if you
And
wanted to stay, you had to find a way to support the board, which was a really tricky thing.
and
So
I
from
don't know if this was your case, but I feel like in a situation like that, confidentiality can be a weapon. It can be a tool, a leverage point where, and I don't know if the board did this, but number one, when you just like, they put you in ghost mode and you disappear, so then everybody thinks you're sleeping with somebody, right? That's where their mind goes. And then you resign, and the people by default trust the board. So if they're like, we can't speak about it, but we had a difference and we allowed him to resign, they by default, they're still criminalizing you in their head.
sure.
And so even the people that probably reached out like, we're sorry this worked out, there's probably part of them that are like, we trust the board, that they know something, and if they told us the truth, it would make sense.
That's for sure what happened.
And which really sucks. And that is the truth. It's just not the truth they think in their head. You know, you did have a disagreement. And so that has to be really hard for you. And good for you on your mentor and the fact that you're willing to submit to that advice. Because I had a weird church situation not long ago that I had to deal with. And I remember looking at our lead, so it's an elder led. It was a lead teaching elder, and I said, "Listen, John," I said, "if I'm in the wrong, I said I'll take that one on the chin, but I can't stand feeling mischaracterized, and that people it was manipulating something. It's taking a phrase out of context." And I said, "And that really, really bothers me, and I feel like I need to clear my name in that regards." And so it must have taken every ounce of power in you not to feel righteously indignant to stand up and say, I am being mischaracterized and I deserve my day in court kind of thing to clear my name.
Well, and yes, you're spot on. One of the coolest things that happened, and this is not a, something that is common knowledge to most people in this story. There was another godfather of the church in Portland, meaning, Portland's not known for being a super churched
Yeah.
city. There was one guy who had been there like longer than most, and was kind of viewed as the godfather of the church in the city. Different theology than me. Okay, so he landed on a different side.
Mm-hmm.
He calls me up, and I had talked to him a few times while I was there. And he calls me up, and I'll never forget. He's like, "Hey, I've seen all the stuff. Like, heard what your board said about you. He's like, I've seen what they're trying to do." And he said, basically, they're trying to discredit you to make you go away and to not call anything out for them. And he goes, here's what I'm offering you. He goes, you just proved that you're willing to live out your faith and you're willing to pay the price for it. So because your board is trying to discredit you, he goes, you plant a church anywhere you want in Portland. And he said, I will rally all the other churches around you to support you.
Dang.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, guys, like that was like the grace of God,
Yeah.
such a powerful, like I remember thinking, you don't even align with me theologically on a lot of things. You know what I mean? But this guy was like so Jesus in that moment of like, hey, I've seen what the board's doing to you. Here's what we're going to do. And fellas, if I told you that there wasn't something in me that wanted to just be like, let's
do
go.
it.
Let's roll.
We're gonna rally these. I mean,
Yeah.
And so that sounded very appealing to me for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Like all the wrong reasons.
I'll be honest.
And
I feel it. You just saying it.
I'm about to move.
I was like,
to
let's go.
Portland. I just texted my wife and I was like, hey, we're moving to Portland. Because I don't know,
Cabernet, and we're on our way.
You guys are good dudes. I love it.
But we're about to head out.
So you ultimately move back to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
tail
just
between my legs?
Is that just
that was
because
home
that's
for us?
home? That's
And so my wife's in real estate, very successful, and we didn't know how we were going to make money. at that point. Cause again,
Yeah.
I didn't get a severance.
Yeah.
So we're now scrambling. It's like, how do we do this? I didn't want to rush back into another church after this because I'm beat up, I'm bruised, I'm all over the place.
Mhm.
And she said to me, "Hey, I don't want you to have to rush back into a ministry position because of financial reasons." So she's like, "Let's move back to Arizona." She was a licensed realtor in Oregon and Arizona, so she could pick right back up. So she's like, "Let's move to Arizona. I can financially, support us in this season." And that was a godsend for me. So but I'll tell you, it was an ego
Yeah.
blow to move back after thinking this is my dream job, and it's like tail between my legs. That didn't work out, and then
And is that
everybody,
the
because again,
town where you were working at previously?
it's close enough. Yeah, it's
So
not.
like
We live in a
you're
different city.
basically re-encountering these people that you had
Yes,
left
but
3 years prior.
correct. And they all are, are you back here? Like, and so I have to have that conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
we moved back and it didn't go well. And, they don't know the story either. And so it was like, it was humiliating on so many levels. And yet, I don't remember who first said it, but I live by this idea that whatever is bad for your ego is good for your soul.
Mm.
And all of that was so bad for my ego. And it was soul work for
Yeah.
like years. And I think it produced something really good in me. I would never in a million years want to go back and do that again. Like it was
Yeah.
so
Yes.
brutal. And I would say it's taken me 5 years to just feel like I'm finding a new rhythm, finding my voice again, finding out how do I make sense of this. So, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'd be like, "I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
things." It's like I'm 42 right now. Like I feel like I should have things figured out, and it's like I feel like in some sense I'm like beginning a journey
Sure.
anew.
I mean, yeah, you said it perfectly. It's that idea of I would never give up what I've gained, and I would also never go back and relive it for anything. Um, which is tough. So then, what have you been doing for the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Like
What's that?
y'all moved back to Arizona, a few months after this. You kind of your wife, which thankfully in some ways that's a blessing because it sounds like she was very successful in Arizona. Y'all moved back to the same area, and so it's not like she's gone long enough that her name has disappeared. And so I'm guessing she's able to kind of reemerge and reestablish her footing to give you that financial, um, that need is met. So then it's like, okay, like our bills are taken care of. So then what have you been doing for the last 4.5 years to heal and rebuild? And what does
So
life look
for
like?
a while, it was, just nothing. Like I'm going to be a great dad and I'm going to be a great husband. And
Mhm.
part of it was she had always supported me in ministry because, ministry was like, man, I'm gone so
Uh,
many hours a week, so many nights a week. And so her real estate had to work around that. Like she could only, and then we had young kids. We have 5 kids. So they were young, and which meant like she was doing most of the appointments and the schedule stuff and all of that around for those. And so in that, when we came back, it was like, let me do this. And so I was the one, at home. I was with the little guys. I was the one, taking them to appointments primarily. And that allowed her to like take off and to be more successful than she had ever been. And so that was like all I focus on. Like I'm gonna be a great dad, I'm gonna
Mhm.
be a great husband, and we'll focus there. Still, at the beginning, I was still speaking in some megachurch evangelical contexts, and as my space from being a lead pastor grew, my theology grew as well, and I started rethinking some things and started being more vocal about some things. And as that happened, some of those invites went away, where it was
Yeah.
like, okay, you're too far outside of this now. And not that I would say something from their stage like that. I don't think they were afraid of that. It was like, oh, someone's going to go look at your podcast or look at your TikTok, or, you know what I mean? Like they're going to see something else you believe that you've shared online. And then now we've got an issue. So that was like a weird space that just took a while. But then, I started with, I jokingly said to my wife, like, well, I don't know what to do now. She's like, what are things you love? Like, let's just rebuild this. And so I was like, all right, I love talking about Jesus. I love wine and I love Oregon, and I don't, get Oregon anymore. Like, so I was kind of like being snarky about it. And she goes, well, let's figure out something. So we created something we call Communion Wine Co., which is a basically a tool to bring people together around wine to experience Jesus in new ways. So that's what I started with out of this. It was like, let's just kind of, and that hasn't really been like an income generating thing, but it started to give me a chance to like use that muscle in a new way. And so we would do weekend retreats in Oregon where I would fly up for the weekend and we'd have couples meet us there. And I would do this like whole thing around wine and theology and like really beautiful. We've started doing like theology nights. We'll take over a wine bar and they'll close early and then I'll do like this guided experience while we do a wine flight. So they'll learn about the wine and then we'll talk about Jesus. And I've continued to do that over these years. And now I push that format of like, what are things that you can never pull off in a church setting, but in a wine bar, you can make it happen. And so really leaning into the uniqueness of that. And then through that, I started Cabernet and Pray, which was the first podcast I started doing of like, oh, maybe I could extend this to a broader conversation where I could invite other people in. We have a glass of wine while we talk about theology. And I realized like, I love this. Like I love, I love these kind of conversations. I love sitting down, talking about ideas, talking about life, talking about beauty. And like, that's really meaningful to me. And then I realized like I'm learning a ton, which is I suspect is how you guys feel as like hosts. Like,
Yeah.
whatever my listeners get out of my podcast, like I guarantee you is a fraction of what I get out of it because I'm the one like just processing all these ideas week after week. And I'm like, I am growing. I'm thinking of things in new ways. I'm loving it. And then, I get to share that. And so then I had a friend come to me and he said, hey, he's like, you're doing deconstruction really well. I was like, thanks, man. He's like, your podcast. He's like, man, you're deconstructing big ideas. And he goes, what are you offering people for like, what's next? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a church. Like, that's not what I'm doing. And he goes, no. He's like, you need to help them. Like if someone is going through your deconstruction journey, what are you off? Like, how do you help them on their next step? And I had like nothing. And so working through that, then I ended up creating, I think it's about a year ago, what was my Rebuilding Faith. So that's my newer podcast, which is rebuilding things. It's like we're gonna put it back together. And so even in that, I feel like things are starting to figure out more. I've had new churches that I'm partnering with emerge through this that took a while. And so now, I'm talking to newer churches like, hey, this is actually a really good fit to partner with you guys. And so there's just been cool things like that, but it's been a slow 5-year journey of that.
And you may not be able to answer this, but do you think you will be working at a church again at some point? Or do you think you're just in a new sphere and speaking and the online platform is like that next season of ministry for you?
I don't think as I sit here today, I don't think I would be a lead pastor again. And I've had job offers in the last 5 years to go do that. And I'm like, not interested in that. I have concerns about that model. Expecting one person to be the end all in a community, I think is problematic. I also know what it felt like for me to try to be that person and didn't bring out the best in me. So I don't know that I would do that again. I'm very open to being a part of a church, to speaking into a culture of a church, to doing teaching at a church. So I'm not anti-church at all. And I think some people are like, oh, he got bitter. He had one bad experience. He got bitter. It's like, no, I had one bad experience that was traumatic and opened my eyes to what a lot of churches have going on underneath the hood. But I'm not, I want to be the guy that critiques from the inside of it to go, hey, we could do this better. Like let's call it out. Like I can critique my own marriage because I'm in it. You know what I mean? So like I can talk about things like, hey, yeah, we gotta get better at this. I'm not bashing my wife. I'm saying like I'm a piece of this. I'm a part of this. And so that's how I view the church now. So I'm on board to partner with churches. I don't know that I would do it again as a lead pastor.
Almost like a church consultant for some.
Well, I did that for a little bit in this season where churches were bringing me in, almost like, which is never said, but like not like we want an outsider's view, like he understands us, but like he's going to come out this totally different. So I did like some consulting. There's like a church in Colorado that it was awesome. And it was fun, but that hasn't materialized into more and more things. So,
it's kind of like what a lot of times they'll use really successful pastors when they first retire. they'll
Yeah.
be like, "Here, we need you. You just didn't exactly retire."
Yeah. And it wasn't exactly successful by
Yeah.
most
So
definitions of that.
when you talk about, the guy said you're doing deconstruction well. Like deconstruction is a spectrum,
Yeah.
and anywhere from I'm going from like Bible thumping believer to atheist, or sometimes to atheist and back to believer. Like it's what is when you look at you just yourself and the theological kind of evolution of you, what has been deconstructed and reconstructed, like what is, because what I'm hearing you say is you're still a believer, like your relationship with Jesus is great, you never left your faith, like you have consistently considered yourself some version of a Christian or evangelical along the way, but there's been something that's morphed that you're like, other people find this uncomfortable. So what has that, what are you referencing there?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think two things come to mind. I deconstructed my view of the church. And again, my undergrad degree was in church ministry, which is funny to me now. I'm an adjunct professor. I teach church ministry classes online for students. Like I'm going through it.
Still?
Yeah. So I'm going through a church ministry class right now. I'm teaching online. And I actually love it because I'm able to engage with people who are either in ministry or up and coming into ministry and challenge them to rethink some of these things that, like one of the final projects for this class I'm teaching right now is they have to design their own church. And like it's like a 12-page paper where they have to design this church from the ground up. It's a fictional church, but you have to create all elements of it. So you have to create a what we believe page. You have to figure out what's your leadership model, what staffing positions do you have and why, what kind of a governance model are you using. So like they have to think through, okay, if you were going to create a church, how would you think through all of this? And then what I end up doing whenever I grade this, I've taught this for like 5 years now. Whenever I am grading this, I'm always pointing out things that they are not thinking about at all. For example, almost always they'll never mention anything about LGBTQ. And so I'll just say, hey, someone who's looking at your church who is in that community would have no idea if they're welcome, if they can serve, if they can teach, if they can be on staff, because you haven't even acknowledged them. You know what I mean? And so they're like, oh, like, I didn't think about that. Or I'll say, hey, are women able to do everything that men can do here because you've never laid this out? Or like, I'm able to offer them a perspective that like, they're just like, this is how we've always done it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you're not thinking of how these ideas are going to play out in a real context. So I actually love that. And I think as long as they'll have me, I'll keep teaching that. So that's been fun. The other thing I think is, I grew up with very mainstream evangelical theology. And what I have found is so much of it is not, I don't want to say this tactfully. I'll say it this way. So much of it doesn't actually look like Jesus. Mm-hmm. That when you peel the layers back, the layers of that onion back, and you get to the center of it, you go, oh, this isn't Jesus. So even, take eternal conscious torment or take, any of these ideas. I grew up with those ideas. I grew up my whole life. I didn't even know that there were other views other than eternal conscious torment till my late 20s. And I was a preacher's kid. I went to seminary. I didn't even know it existed. Yeah. So like I was fully bought in to all of these ideas, but I never felt a peace about that theology. Like that always felt unsettled to me. I just didn't know there were other options. So as soon as I knew there were other options, I'm like, oh, this looks way more like Jesus to me than what I have believed.
Yeah, like literally any of the other
on
ones
a whole bunch of
better.
subjects.
Yeah.
So I think theologically, I've deconstructed a ton of things, and with my idea of the church, I've deconstructed. But to me, deconstruction is not a negative term at all. The easiest analogy I use for people is if your check engine light comes on in your car, something's up. So what do? Unless you're really handy, you're going to take it to a mechanic. You're going to take it to a shop, and you're going to ask that person to deconstruct your engine. Now, why are they deconstructing it? Because you have a check engine light on. something's not working right. They've got to figure out. So they're going to take things apart till they figure out what's wrong. Then they're going to reconstruct it and put it back together. And they're going to give you your car and it's going to have no more check engine light on. Like that to me is how we should live. Like when you have a check engine light come on in your soul, you should deconstruct that and go, oh, something's off. I need to figure this out. And as you deconstruct it, you'll figure that out. Oh, there was this piece. This thing's funky, or I got to rethink this. Then you reconstruct it and your light's not on anymore. And now you can go drive your vehicle and it works better.
The go-to answer in the church is put black electrical tape over the alert.
Yeah. Block it out.
You just need to have faith. And that's why it doesn't make sense. What you think is an alert in your soul is just, no, that's just like we're a fallible human being that doesn't understand everything. That's God, which that is a limit. Like that is true. But a lot of the check engine lights that I've seen on the church's dash covered in electric tape are exactly what you just said. They're questions that need asked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I guess this is a personal thing too, but deconstruction for churches mean they're at fault. Like, because everything that I'm deconstructing is probably what you have taught. And then if I find something wrong, then that means other people can find something wrong, which means you no longer have like this map to what's right, which brings back that point of then faith is risky. And we don't like risk, and we want security, and we want safety. And so my personal deconstruction puts the church at fault. And so I feel like the questions a lot of times bring them into light of saying, okay, what have you taught me? Which just makes sense when you say it out loud. Like, what have you taught me, and is it right? What are the options?
Yeah.
Because in the same way, like when we started the podcast, and I don't know, like it's just been a journey from, you could listen to our first podcast to our most recent podcast.
Don't listen to the first one.
And it's pretty bad.
They're always bad.
Yeah. And it's like two completely different people for both of us. Like, in all honesty, just because we asked those questions. Like, we did a series recently that we're like, whatever, like we'll start at the beginning. Like, what's the Trinity? How do we even know what the Trinity is? And I think it makes people uncomfortable. But to know it is going to do one of two things, which is always what Marty says. It's either going to refine your faith, or it's going to lead you to a better faith in some way and just kind of reaffirm what you already have. And so I think what you said earlier is like, you still had Jesus enough and you believed in who Jesus was that you can deconstruct anything around you and be okay. Whereas most people see deconstruction and say they're going to not have faith anymore in anything. And sometimes that's true just because people don't know where to look, or they don't have the option. They say, hey, you either believe this or you don't believe at all. And it puts people in a spot of like, I'm forced to pick between acceptance and community or truth. And it depends on what they value in the moment, depends on what they choose. And I don't think that's fair.
Well, you don't know where it's going to go. That is the scary part, right?
Yeah.
If I start looking under the hood, I don't know how bad it is. I don't know what I'm going to find there. And what I have realized, most church communities, the community is built around a shared belief in ideas.
Yeah.
We all agree these ideas, right? And again, it can be very specific or more generalized, but hey, we all kind of agree with these ideas. And so because we agree with these ideas, that's why we're this church, we're this entity. Yeah. Well, what happens when someone who's in that suddenly goes, hey, I know we agree with X, Y, and Z, but the Y part, I don't think I believe that anymore. Then what they realize is, I don't fit here. I don't belong here. And then that's when the deconstruction journey feels overwhelming and lonely. And then they have to go find a new community. And so what I am encouraging churches, like, you have to create a sense of identity that's bigger than just we all agree with the same things. Because if that's all it's built on, then people will have to opt out the moment their check engine light comes on and it's different than what you believe. And to me, I just think a church doesn't have to be so narrow where we all see it exactly the same way. And I love the fact that you guys talk about, your journey. I'd be curious for you guys, like, how long have you guys been friends? And like, how have you watched each other change your minds on different things?
every week. No,
every week.
no, we've been friends since
2020.
2018, 2020,
No,
2020. Was it
2020.
COVID?
2020 is a good year for all of us,
Yeah.
guys.
So
Yeah, 2020.
I
That's right.
left
Shout out to COVID. Shout
I
out to COVID.
launched into the private practice sector of counseling in 2020.
Oh, that's right.
And
That's right.
he was needing a
That's
supervisor
right.
to finish a
The degree.
license.
Yeah.
And so we had a bunch of mutual friends. Like Josh and I didn't know each other, but we had a ton of mutual friends. And somebody was like, "You need," had Josh reach out to me to be his supervisor. And like we're not that far apart in age, just we were at a different place in life. And so anyway, we met, and I started being his quote unquote supervisor, and we discussed nothing counseling related really. We were we just realized we were having these like really interesting theological conversations, and within about 3 months of meeting each other, I was like, dude, this would make a good podcast. And he's like, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And it
And
was like
so,
this Step Brothers moment, it
yeah,
felt like.
yeah,
Do we just become
And
best friends?
yeah,
do we just become best friends?
yeah.
And so anyway, and so we launched it a few months after that. And so what's funny is we were like, what are we gonna call the podcast? And I was like, I don't know, but I want it to represent like a tension that doesn't feel like it should go together. I was like tattoos and Jesus. I said we have tattoos, but we both love Jesus. And what's funny is like we tried to find a name for the podcast for like several weeks that represented that tension of tattoos and Jesus. And then finally we were like, why don't we just call
Just
it
call it
tattoos and
tattoos. Just
Jesus?
go with it.
Because it
Yeah.
feels like two things that shouldn't go together, but it's also us. Like it is also a picture of who we are, which actually is a really good segue. So, well, anyway, to finish your question, is so we've pretty much been friends for 5 years, and it actually what works really well is like we're friends, like we take trips together and hang out, but we also live in totally different worlds. So
Mm.
like when we do come together, it's not like, well, I just spent the last 3 days with you. Like it's always more or less fresh conversation, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so I would say for the first couple years, it was just having honest conversations, nothing really special. But it was when he introduced the idea of hell. I guess that was 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
But we started studying it probably a year or two before that. He was like, dude, I read this book and like we need to look at this. And to me, I was like, stranger danger. Josh just went off the deep end.
Yeah. His first but that's what you get when you talk about like universalism or ultimate. It's like, hey, I read this. This seems awesome. And every single person,
Yeah.
immediate reaction is like,
And
oh,
and it
Lord.
was wild because I'm like, all right, whatever. And
Farewell, Josh.
I
Yeah.
start researching it,
Leading everybody
and
astray.
it's like, dude, this actually has footing. And like we listen to a lot of Theology in the Raw with Preston Sprinkle. I think he does a really, really good job of providing like we want scripture to speak truth into us, but I don't want like blurred lines to try to define me outside of what scripture does. So we listen to a lot of his stuff on hell. And so anyway, since then I would say Josh, it's really funny. Like I'm the slow moving one. He's the one that's like, let's just jump. Like let's just go off the deep end. And so he's frequently introducing ideas, maybe even off the pod, that I'm like, dude, you're nuts. He always ends up being right. Like he'll say something like, I don't believe in original sin, or something like that. And I'm like, dude, why are you so wacky? But then it's like I go research it and I'm like, oh, you're smarter than you look.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. You got to
there's a
digest it.
really
Yeah.
strong, like there's some really strong theological, but when you have those
That's
blinders
amazing.
on, that's like you see scripture the same exact way. It's hard to see scripture in another way, but there's freedom. Like I told you, I think before we started the pod, like I am by no means like super rebellious. Like he's been way more like off the deep end than me, but I still, compared to like my upbringing in the church I go to, I still feel like I'm doing Christianity wrong, and it's never
Mm.
felt more right. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. When I do what I'm not supposed to, and I feel like I have a better understanding of Jesus, a closer relationship with Jesus, and a better grasp on theology, but I'm doing it wrong. Make that make sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but anyway, we only have a few minutes left.
Let me add. Let me add.
Okay,
Let me
add
I,
add
I,
away,
I can
add
listen.
away.
So
It's
the
not even lunchtime in Arizona.
yeah, he's got time. He's got time. It's almost time for his first glass of wine. So When it comes to
It's
like
weird for
that,
me to do a podcast with no wine. I'm just saying this is
hey,
for you
look,
guys.
Hey,
hey,
nobody
Just
stopped
coffee
you.
I'm
today.
telling you right now, at the end of the pod, I'm asking for your favorite red and your favorite white, and I'm going to buy each. But
Love it.
depending on the price. But you ask that question to some, and it's like, yeah, never mind. We don't live in the same realm. But no, I was going to say one thing that David Artman mentioned that because we went on his podcast too, that I thought was, I don't think I really saw it that way. I just saw because we're friends, we talk, we record our conversations, and it's like the same conversations that we would have generally anyway. But he was like, one thing that he really enjoyed was the fact that we could stand on two different sides because there's times where we don't agree, but we still talk about it, and then at the end we're just like, all right, we'll see y'all next week. Like it's that coexistence piece of, hey, this might be a little too far for me, and I'm like, hey, that might be a little too far for me, but you just sit with it because at the end of the day, it doesn't break the basis of what we believe. Like at
Yeah.
the bottom line is, we both love Jesus. We're both trying to see what that truth is, and we both try to live it out. And that looks completely different from even from a church standpoint to where he elder at a SBC. We just joined like PC USA Church around here, and it was just like it's two different spectrums. For a little while, I didn't go to church at all, and so I have had people reach out saying how much they were praying for me. Like it's just I don't. And Marty's still sitting here having the conversations with me casually, and Marty's never once said he was praying for me, so I guess he thought I was okay. Um, but it's
That's
a
amazing.
cool dynamic and cool journey, I guess, of the tension, because once you know somebody, and this is true for anything, once you know somebody, it doesn't matter anymore in a way.
Mm.
Like it doesn't matter once you get to know the person, because we judge everybody by their ideas or their systems or their topics. But once you truly know somebody, then you instantly have a connection, and you have more empathy of understanding of where they come from, and it's harder to push that away, and it's easier to coexist. And I think because we already had that, like if we didn't know each other and then we would sit down and talk to each other, I have no idea. Like if we just met today, like I don't know where we would stand. But because we already had that, it helped it kind of like bounce within the boundary of that.
I think it's awesome. And
Yeah.
and so cool to have that relationship where you're both growing, you're both committed, you're both in an environment like this where you hear new ideas and you hear, things that you go, huh, I never thought about that. And
Mhm.
I just think that's super cool it'll be
It's
fun to catch up with you guys 5 years from now, to
yeah.
see like, hey, how's the
Yeah.
journey continued as you keep doing this
Yeah.
together?
Well, you don't have to, because we'll be in Portland with your church
Right. It's going to be
participating
huge.
in the service. Yeah.
I
So
can't wait to have
just have to.
communion with that real wine.
That's
Oh,
right.
Welch's ain't
I'll tell
doing
you
it.
what, I have hosted some communion experiences they're legendary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Legendary.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm telling you.
So before we wrap up, because we don't get the privilege of oftentimes having people on the show that have as good, if not better, tattoos than us. So I have a
Wow, I'm
sleeve,
honored.
Josh has a half sleeve, and you have a sick looking sleeve.
Mm.
What was this part? So I was listening to a TikTok yesterday. It was this FBI guy, and he's like, people always get tattoos because they're either like have went through something hard, they're coming through a season of growth, they feel misunderstood. Like there's always an angstiness about it. So was this post 2020 or pre 2020? What was? Please help us to walk us through the sleeve.
Oh, so good. This is fun. I don't think I've ever fully explained my sleeve publicly. So like, thank
If
you.
this is a
This is cool.
private
Yeah.
thing, I
I
mean, we
mean,
don't have to.
I mean,
No,
I'll be
no,
honest.
I'm saying like I'm honored. Like this is
Okay.
really a cool, it's a
Oh,
cool
okay.
question to answer.
Yeah.
So you're spot on too, because this was all after 2020 for me. And it wasn't rebellious to me. This
Yeah.
was a rebirth
Well,
of
it
like,
looks really crisp. It
Yeah.
looks fresh.
Fluent.
well, yeah. So it's not 20 years old. So I
Right.
started. So here's my theory. Let's see. So I started with you can't really tell this, but this is a phoenix on my arm,
Yeah.
and like the more of the Asian vibe of like intricate. So like this is the phoenix's face, which you have to literally be staring at it because it's so complicated. But
Hmm.
that was my first one of like I just got lit on fire, and I'm gonna come out of it.
Yeah.
Like that was an
Yes.
iconic,
Rising from the ashes, the phoenix.
literally. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
you
it's all
know,
right, Harry
then
Potter.
it's like I'm lived most of my life in the city of Phoenix, so there's the tie in there.
Yeah.
I also love Harry Potter. Hopefully, you don't have to mute this part of the episode,
No,
but
that's right.
Yeah.
Shout out Harry
Dumbledore's
Potter.
bird, fox. I mean, just
So
amazing
was
imagery.
that your first tattoo ever?
Yes. And I have a theory, which I'm curious if you guys agree with this theory. My theory is this, that everybody spends a lifetime figuring out your first tattoo. And then once you break the seal, like all bets are
Game
off.
over,
And then your
man.
criteria for
Yes.
number
just
2 on
drops.
is
Yes.
completely
It just
differently.
drops.
Now it's like, is it a Thursday? I'm free and have $200 in my pocket.
I mean, literally, yeah. This took me 40 years
Yes.
Yeah.
to get. And then it was like, oh, let's go.
So how long did you have the half sleeve? But did you always plan on the full?
Yep. I went into my guy and I said, I want a full sleeve. And he's
Okay.
like, let's go. This took us 5 sessions throughout a year. So this was not you're not going to get a full sleeve in a sitting, but
I mean, you
so
could,
even like
and it would reflect.
it would kill you.
Yeah.
So like the Phoenix, this took me two sessions. One was just all the black lines, and it's so complicated. Then the second session, he went in and just colored it all in. So that was 2 sessions, just that. My favorite tattoo is on my inner arm, which is the hardest to see. It's it looks like a rose, but it's filled like a wine glass, and it says "In vino veritas." You guys know what that is in Latin?
Yeah, of course we do. But why don't you tell the listeners
For the
what
listeners,
Something
yeah.
about wine, which is incredible. So
Yep. In wine, there is truth. It's
amen.
actually a line said by Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday in the movie Tombstone.
That's
Oh
funny.
wow.
So it's also my favorite movie. Side note. So that was my second one I got. So then I had the half sleeve. So that was a session.
Yeah.
Then 2 more sessions for my lower arm. I have a lamb with a crown on it because I'm so sick and tired of everyone talking about God as a lion when the book of Revelation is so
Yes.
freaking clear that chapter 5, I could do a whole pod on this. Chapter 5, all the elders are looking for the one that can break the seal, that can wield the power of God. And they say, behold, the Lion of Judah can do it. And then they look around and it's like tumbleweeds. There is
a
no
lamb.
lion to be found.
Yes.
And what do they find instead? A slaughtered little lamb that looked like it had been recently killed, still dripping blood, walks over and opens the seals. And then from that point on, all throughout the book of Revelation, God is revealed to be a lamb, never a lion.
Yes.
So that is one of the biggest things. Like, you are a lion and a lamb. Like, no, Jesus is not. They all thought that he was going to be a lion. He ended up being a lamb. So literally, like, I don't know if you guys have a ton of them, but we have the bumper stickers, lions, not sheep, and I see them on
Yes,
shirts everywhere.
yeah,
And I'm always like, literally the opposite on my arm forever. Like, sheep, not lions.
Yes.
Then I've got this last one on my outer arm, is my only Bible verse. And it's Leviticus 19:28.
Is that the tattoo verse?
It's the verse that says, do not put tattoos on your body.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
tattooed that on my body, and I get asked about, hey, what's Leviticus? I was in Starbucks. What's Leviticus 19:28? And I tell them it's the verse that says, do not tattoo your body. And the look that I get next is the best, because they look at you like you're either deranged or you're like a devil, that's like mocking God.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to figure out like what kind of a person puts that on their arm, And so then I explained, hey, actually, I'm like, pretty big fan of Jesus, and I feel like he has redeemed all that, fulfilled all that, so I don't have to live by that anymore. And they're like, oh, that's cool, So so like this is a whole journey, and literally it was a rebirth for me of, hey, I'm in a new season. This is a new me. I don't see going back. I'm going forward. I had thought about getting tattoos my whole life, and I always thought, like, as a lead pastor, probably not the wisest move, like you're going to alienate certain people. And in this season, I'm like, hey, this is
be like,
who
I've
I
done
am.
way more alienation for far worse at this point. Tattoos are now like walking
Got
the
it.
park.
Yeah.
I love it. So
Mm.
yeah,
That's awesome. It looks really sick.
No, it
Like it
looks
is.
Thank you very much.
It is. It
yeah,
looks sick. That's cool.
yeah.
So, do you have any others planned?
So I've thought about do I do my other arm as a sleeve?
Yeah.
Probably not gonna do that, but I've thought about like getting one like on my thighs or something. Like I think would
Hmm.
be cool. Not like full leg tats, but
Yeah. I love my. This is my bias. I love contrast, and when you see somebody that has one whole sleeve, and then there's the contrast of not, or just having something small like an inner bicep or like to me there's this cool like contrast.
mm,
Like I like two full sleeves. Like I think it looks good. I just think it looks cool when there's that contrast there.
thank you. I've always been a fan of the one arm sleeve.
Yeah.
Two arm sleeves, you look like hardcore. You know, like you
Yeah.
see a dude with like two arm, you're like, whoa.
I think you should get like a throat butterfly.
Oh yeah, the throat one going up is
Yeah.
sick. I also think when they go up onto your
Yeah.
the back of your hand,
Yeah.
like that's like next level. Because I can put a long sleeve shirt on,
Yeah.
and you know,
Be
So
fun.
that's
I'm all
kind of how
business.
I've always thought is like I want to be able to look normal if I need to.
Yeah,
And so there's
but
a
there's something to be said when it's like you can be all business and you still have tats
Yeah.
showing. You're
yes.
like,
Well,
whoa,
Yeah.
that's the
that guy's
truth. And it's
hardcore.
one of those things too, like the older you get, I think there's part of you that's just like doesn't give a crap anymore. And then there's that part of you that's like, I'm pretty secure that I'm gonna make it now. Like I'm not 25 fighting for the top anymore. And so it's like, yeah, I'll gamble, I'll risk it.
Yeah.
No, and that
And
was for me. It's like I literally was in. I think I was either 40 or close to 40 when I got all this. And it was like, I know who I am. I've already figured it out. So it's not like some I'm just, trying to find myself. It's like, no, I know who I am. Like I know,
yeah.
How
the
did your
vibe.
wife
Yeah.
respond to the idea?
She was fine with it because I mean, like this is
Talking
not
about it.
off brand for me. It
Yeah.
just was something I had never done. I'll tell you what was funny is I sent a photo. I got my first one, just the outline done of the
Yeah.
Phoenix on my arm. I sent a photo to my dad and because I
Oh
hadn't
yeah.
told him that I was doing it. And he literally didn't believe that it was real.
Yeah.
He's like, no, no way that's real. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, no, dad, I did it. He's like, I don't believe you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so
Bet
then
he
I like
believes you
literally
now.
showed him a video. I was like, no, dad, it's like it's on my arm. Like I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, I cannot. Like he was shocked that I
Yeah.
did it. And
That's
I don't
awesome.
love needles either. So I think he was also like, you sat there
Yeah.
for how long? And
So
like, yeah,
okay, so
Yeah.
tell me, you've
yeah.
had a sleeve. Josh has a half sleeve. Josh's goes down below his elbow. So he said, so what was the worst part for you? Like, what was the most painful on the arm?
Upper inside by my
Yeah,
armpit
yeah,
was like I literally told him like, are you almost done? Because like this is so painful. And then there's a unique pain that only people who have had a tattoo understand where they're constantly wiping,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Just wiping,
yes.
wiping, wiping.
It's
And
almost
that
worse than the tattoo.
it is worse because your skin is it's like I try to tell
Yes.
people it's like the worst sunburn you've ever had is what it
And then
feels
somebody's
like.
going,
And then someone keeps wiping
yes,
it, and you're like,
100%.
please stop. And when he
Yes,
was doing that to my inner arm, like just kept wiping it clean, I was like, I'm gonna punch you.
yeah,
And I think that was the only time I asked,
yes.
like,
It
are
feels
you
like
almost done?
skin is coming off.
Oh, that thing was so
Yeah, I'll be
painful.
honest. That and my elbow pit was not fun, but it's a much smaller space.
Yeah, mine. That felt weird to me. Like
Yeah.
I don't like the feeling of this, but it didn't hurt like the inner arm did. Do you have your inner arm done or no?
I had, hold on. Josh, did you do your inner arm? Does it go all the way up though?
Yeah. So well, it goes all the way up and over the chest.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got a full sleeve there. Look at that. How high does that bad boy go?
It goes all the way up.
Into your armpit?
Yeah, all the way up to my shoulder.
So what did you think?
Same. Exactly
Yeah,
what
isn't
you
that
just said is exactly
oh
correct. Like it is, that was the worst part was, so I will say this, I recently went and got a thigh tattoo and it hurt far worse than I expected it to.
really?
Yeah.
And it was almost like it wasn't as bad as the inner arm, but it kind of had that vibe. It just lasted longer
Yeah.
because it's a bigger space.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it wasn't like untenable. Like I could have sit there and done, however long I needed to. But like on my other ones, like I could have sat there for hours. Like it never really bothered me once you got out of those certain spots.
Yeah.
But the whole thigh tattoo was like not the funnest thing ever.
Yeah.
So what's the longest you guys have sat?
It's like 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah, I
I
think
So
did
I
an
did
all
that.
I did an
I did
all
that
day
once for
session.
my lower
Yeah,
arm. So it was essentially 2 sessions. He said,
yeah,
this side and this side, and I regretted it. Like I was like, I'm over this because it's a
yeah,
mental game
yeah.
at
yeah.
that point.
You're just holding through. They did. I got my chest and my like all the way over to my back, and there's like one it's not on the nipple, but he got close, and it
Ooh.
literally felt like he was just drilling in the middle of my
Oh
nipple,
man.
and I was like, and I even asked him, I even asked him at one point, I said, "Are you on my nipple?" And he was like, "No, it just feels that way." And I was like, "How about
Imagine if he was actually
how
on it.
about a warning, bro? Like, I don't get can I get like a heads up? Like,
Yeah,
what does the nipple feel like? You're drilling my heart? Like, I
I've
don't.
always thought it'd be cool, and I may do it at some point. Hey, don't ask me why. I don't know why, but this giant owl, I wanted it on the front of my shin, taking up most of my. And I'm a big guy. I mean, you can't see this. Josh is like 6'2".
Yeah,
I'm like 6'4". Like we're big guys. So I wanted this giant owl on my shin, and I told my wife the other day. She's like, "You're an idiot. Like that would be so painful."
That does sound painful.
And it does. And I'm like, "You're right." But then there's also that part of me that's like, then I have to do it. I have to know I can get to the other side
Mm.
of that pain. But realistically, there might be a day coming where you're like, "Why is there a beak on your shin?"
yeah.
And I'm just like, "That's as far
That's
as I
as
could
far as I
get, man.
got.
That's
That's
it.
just
just
just too.
That's all I
just
had in me.
just
That's
a
all it
beak."
is. I asked my tattoo artist, and he said the stomach is hands down the worst tattoo. And he's tatted from head to toe. He said the stomach, he almost couldn't finish the stomach, but he had already
Even
started.
I've heard skull's pretty bad too, not because of pain, but because it feels like your whole brain's just shaking. So
Yeah, I think I'll pass
anyway,
on those.
The
All
way
right.
I've described it to people is like it's not like the pain itself is overwhelming. It's closer
yeah,
to torture. It's like how long can you endure
yes,
this pain? And you know what's interesting is like you don't realize you're clenching the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So like whatever
Yeah.
part of your body is, you're tense.
yeah,
And so like by the time you're done, the adrenaline wears out. Like I have to go nap
Yeah, you're
afterward because
done.
like
yeah,
I
Yeah.
am wiped out, like
right. Which I
physically,
think is
mentally.
why
Yeah.
people use it.
It's like
It
therapy.
is like therapy.
Yeah.
It's like because it's like going to a
It's
really hard
critical.
exercise. It
Yeah.
like it there's this huge dopamine drop, and then your whole body relaxes.
Oh, it's
And
intense.
it's but anyway, well, listen, dude, we're gonna wrap up. Do you have? I guess.
I
Hey,
mean,
so.
top red, top white.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Top red, top white, straight off of the dome right now. What would you recommend for your favorite red, favorite white? And I'm gonna write it
Okay,
down.
so I'm gonna give you a category that so that way you can find what you can find near you. Okay.
Okay.
So top red, you're gonna want to go Oregon Pinot Noir.
Yeah, from Willamette. So that's our favorite so far. Do you have one within that you really love, like a
Oh,
vineyard or like a?
okay.
I
So my
want
all-time favorite, and these guys are incredible, is called Archery Summit.
Archery
And they're
Summit.
big enough where you can find them not necessarily like in grocery stores, but like they do have like more commercialized versions of it. They're like one of the only wine caves in Oregon, so they created their own cave. And dude, they're
Okay.
like such a cool experience, and their wine is unreal.
Okay.
So Archery Summit is like my go-to Oregon Pinot Noir.
Okay.
But here's what people don't realize: throughout the world, there's what's considered signature grapes, meaning it's a varietal and a place that is known for the combination being unique around the world, right? The United States only has two. The one that everybody thinks of is Napa Cab. And so that is one is a Cabernet from that area in California. It's considered a signature. If you want to have a really unique Cabernet from that region, that's around the world known.
Yeah.
The second is an Oregon Pinot Noir, Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. And people don't realize that is a signature grape around the world.
Yeah.
People recognize that. So
Okay.
that's the best kept secret. That's your go-to red. And Pinot Noir can be enjoyed without having to have food. Whereas for most people, a Cabernet, you need a piece of meat with it,
Yeah.
which is great if you're having a steak dinner. But if you just want to enjoy a glass of wine with some friends,
Yeah.
Oregon Pinot Noir. Okay, so for white, I'm going to give you two options.
Are you are you going Chardonnay with it?
I am not going Chardonnay, my man.
Oh, okay. Isn't that what they're usually paired with? The Pinot and the Chardonnay?
Not over here. It's not. Chardonnay to me is is one of the most overhyped
Okay.
wines.
I'm here for it. Let's
I'm
hear
saying
it.
it.
Two
I'm
whites.
saying it here, listeners. It's overhyped.
You heard it here first.
Okay, there's two whites that I think are fascinating, and they're totally different.
Okay.
One is Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. Has to be from New Zealand. Now, Oregon makes Sauvignon Blanc, not a signature. This is a signature grape, is an Oregon Sauvignon Blanc, or sorry, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
Yep.
It is high acidity, so the mouthfeel, you're gonna feel that when you drink it, and it's high on herbaceous notes, so like that green grass, that kind of like bell pepper with it.
Yep.
It is a fantastic, super interesting white wine that goes really well with food, especially seafood, but like if you want some chicken with it, a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand's killer. The other white that I love is a Riesling.
Okay.
And Riesling's a misunderstood grape because people go like, oh, I don't drink sweet wine. Riesling can be made anywhere on the spectrum from dry to sweet. It is a super versatile grape. And the signature there is German. German Rieslings are the big boys. So if you can find yourself a good German Riesling, but Riesling is another grape, goes really good with food. It's a great pairing, and so yeah, those are my recommendations for you.
All right, done. I'm gonna take these three things to the wine shop we have, and I'm gonna say
Down to Trader Joe's.
I'm gonna need you to find me these things, and they'll do it. So I'm here for it. I appreciate the recommendation.
They're gonna be impressed. Like, this guy knows knows his wine.
I'm gonna say I have no idea what any of this means. Can you find this for me?
Like, oh,
listen.
This looks like a man.
And pray.
This is a man from Arizona.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. All right, send it over.
You good now?
I'm great.
Dude, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. We actually we've been talking about this for years. We're kind of up in the ante with some YouTube stuff, some social media stuff. And so if you guys are listening and you want to see the video, we're probably going to post, it might be the first one. Post it to our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
let's go.
And so.
And what's funny is looking at his camera.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at our camera,
100%.
you can tell. Like we look like we were filmed in a high school.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's filmed by NBC. Like
That's
the
good.
different, like we're gonna have to upgrade.
Which honestly disappoints me because this is a new Mac, so I expected it to be okay. But I'm just recording on my Mac, so
yeah, I don't. Yeah,
whatever.
Compared to his, maybe it's good like by itself, but not.
We're just trying to make our guests
camera.
look good. We're to make our guests look good.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're high def. High def.
So anyway, well, dude, thank you so much. Y'all go check out his TikToks. I'm sure you're on other social media platforms. If people are interested, where do you want them to come find you? What's the best pick?
So JeremyJernigan.com is my website where it's the hub for everything. So you can find the different podcasts. I write a weekly blog post every Tuesday. I started recently, about 6 months ago, an online community, which is kind of where I spend my time guiding people into this journey, and we interact in real time. I do a weekly newsletter that's only for the community of things like top 10 things I'm thinking about that week. That's been super fun and has been really helpful for a lot of people who are like, hey, I kind of need like people around me to do this. If that's something of interest to you, would love to have you check out the online community as well.
Awesome. And we will post the links in our descriptions too, so you can click straight to it
all your stuff.
and go check it out. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, we will wrap up this one. And until next time, y'all behave yourselves.
Holla.